I got saved on August 10th of 2010, or I'm sorry, August 15th of 2010. It was on a Sunday. And by December, I had just felt like the Lord brought me through so much. He brought back to remembrance all these things that I had learned when I was in high school, going to church, and he just like started filling the missing pieces, whereas there were these things that I didn't know how to connect. He was like connecting the dots for me, and it was incredible. And I felt just this overwhelming desire to find something more. I wanted to put myself in an environment where I could just learn. I wanted to read the word. I wanted to worship. I just wanted to grow. So I started looking for just programs like Bible colleges. I just went to Google and typed in Bible colleges to see what I could find, and actually found an interest in YWAM. And I had a friend that had gone to YWAM. So I was like, okay, this is perfect. I'll call her and see what her experience was like. And so I talked with her, and she was like, I don't think that's for you. I actually think that there's something that you need to check out. Go to theworldrace.org and watch videos. Just go there and spend some time. So I did that night. I was on their website probably all through the night. I think I completely missed out on sleep that day because I was just so like captivated by what I was reading. So I was like, this is awesome. This is what I want to do, but I'm not sure if I'm wanting it for the right reasons. For me, it was this opportunity to go and spend some time with the Lord. I thought, when else in my life am I going to be able just to spend time with God for an entire year? Because the program was 11 months. So I just decided that I was going to pray about it and wanted the Lord to confirm to me that that was something He wanted me to do, and it wasn't something that I just wanted to do for myself. So this was in December. On January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, somewhere in there, I went to a prayer meeting at my church and was praying on the way over there, and I was like, God, just give me the word go. I promise, if you just tell me the word go, confirm that to me somehow, I'm going to do it. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to start fundraising. Let's do this. So I get to church, and the pastor starts talking about Gideon, and he's given this really awesome sermon on Gideon and gives us 4 words for the year to pray over for 2011. And one of those words was pursue. And that actually might have been the 4th word, because he called us forward and asked us all to just get on our knees before the Lord and just have a time of prayer. And so I did, and it was completely silent in the room. And the pastor comes up on stage and he's like, all right, I have a word from the Lord. He said, the word of the Lord is go. Just go. You need to go. And he said it 3 times. I just like goosebumps from head to toe. I started crying, and I was like, this is what I was looking for. Like, God just confirmed this to me from my pastor's mouth on the stage. This is crazy. So I continued to pray, and I was like, okay, God, like one more time, confirm it to me. This was a $15,000 trip that I needed to raise all this money for. And I'd gone through my interview, and the lady told me that I had a month to decide. And the way that I was going to decide was to donate $150 to my account, and that would confirm that I was going to go. So I prayed, okay, God, if this is from you, please give me that money. Like, I could pay this out of my own pocket, but I want to be in a position where I'm trusting you and not trying to make this happen again on my own. And the night before, I remember, because I had the flu and it was like the worst time for me to be going through something like this, I get a phone call from my mom who told me that a lady had donated $150 and felt like the Lord was telling her to give it to me for my trip. And so I sent it in, and I was just blown away at the Lord's faithfulness. I mean, I sent out my support letters. I was having people that I've never met, people I've only met one time, give me like thousands of dollars to be able to go on this trip. Actually, my best friend's sister sends me this letter. She texted me and said, can you send me your address? And I was like, okay, cool. So this is like a couple weeks before, and I had been praying for this deadline that was coming up. I had needed $6,500 or something by the middle of summer, and I was $110 short. And I was so frustrated because I'd just thrown this huge fundraiser. I was expecting the Lord to just like, I don't know, bring it all in at one time. I was trying to have big faith and just see the Lord work in cool ways. So I get this letter from my friend's sister, and I open it up and it's $110 in cash, just $110, and was like, the Lord's been dealing with me on sending this to you. I felt impressed to send this, and it's not a lot, but I feel like, this is what God is asking me to do, is step out in faith. And I lost it. I started crying. I was like, God, how do you do this? How do you time this stuff so perfectly that you would show me in my frustration and in my, mistrust that you're faithful always by providing me exactly what I need at exactly the right time. It was just incredible. So, I don't know. It was cool. After those moments, I never had this question of, okay, am I supposed to go? Like, I was just for it. I was ready to go and to get started. Okay, so my team went to the Philippines for our first country. There was about 42 of us that traveled this whole year together. On my team specifically, there were 6 people, and we were actually paired with another team for our first month. We were on the island of Mindanao in the city of Balai, and we worked with an orphanage for our first month. And it was such a cool experience. We were all fired up, had a lot of energy, just getting going with our trip. So we worked with kids of all age. The group that I was put with was the toddler group, and that's like where my heart is with the babies. I absolutely adore the babies. So we would do shifts every day. We would go to, depending on your shift, we'd do like an afternoon shift, and then occasionally would sleep overnight with the babies just to monitor them, make sure they weren't needing anything. And it was so sweet, just getting a chance to spend time with kids that didn't have any parents. Most of them had been abandoned. They'd just been dropped off at the orphanage, or they'd been taken out of homes for abusive situations, or for reasons of abuse. And I absolutely fell in love with this one little boy. His name was Glenmark, and he seriously had just the most precious smile. And he was just always like at my hip. I felt like every time I would go there, he was the first one to like run up and like throw his arms around me and just let me love on him. So he was my little baby. I really wanted to adopt him. If I could have, I would. I even emailed my mom a couple times, like, if you feel in your heart for adoption, please, help me get this little boy home. And unfortunately, his story is that his mother was really young. She dropped him off at the orphanage and didn't tell the dad. The mother, I don't even know where she is, but the dad actually found out about him and is working to get him back, which was a beautiful story, really, that the dad wanted to fight for him. And that's all you can really hope for, is that somebody will love those kids and they won't be alone. So that was a really neat experience. Kim Ministries does a lot of great things. They work all over. I think they actually work all over the world. That base, I think, particularly just in the Philippines. So it was just really cool to come alongside them. Was kind of overwhelming at times. I think that was the first time where I had actually sat down after this whole whirlwind of fundraisers and saying goodbye and getting ready and this excitement of meeting new people. I absolutely did not know anybody when I came on the race. I just decided to go, and not anybody that even lives close here was going with me. So that reality started to set in. I started to feel a little bit overwhelmed. That first month was just highs and lows of emotions, of being so excited to be there, but realizing, gosh, 11 months is a long time. But it was so good. So our second month was China. And I still to this day question their thinking on sending us to China for month 2. We were just not prepared at all. We were supposed to have a contact in China, but he was actually in America. We didn't find this out till we actually got there. And of course, you don't think about all these pieces beforehand, but we get there and we're realizing, oh my gosh, we can't speak Chinese. We can't read Chinese. There are Chinese symbols everywhere. I don't know, in my mind, maybe I was thinking something would be familiar to me. Not in the least. Could not even look at a sign for the bathroom and know that that's what it was for. There's no familiarity there. So we get to this city. There were 4 teams of us together traveling to this city after like a 32-hour train ride through the night. We're excited. We meet this Hispanic guy who only speaks Spanish and Chinese, and we're these group of white Americans that only speak English. So there's trying to communicate to him, and he gives each one of us a piece of paper. And we found out our team was going somewhere about 5 hours west of where we were at. So we get on a bus. All we have is this piece of paper that tells us the name of the city in Chinese and the name of the hotel that we're looking for in Chinese. So that way we could show it to people and they could maybe gesture how to get there. So we arrived to the bus station in the next city. We had been on the bus for about 4 hours, get off, arrive in this bus station. And this guy, we'd already paid them before we got on the bus. He hands my team leader money back. My team leader's like, well, I don't understand what's going on. Why is he trying to give me money back? And we're going back and forth. Probably a really comical scene, if you could imagine us as a group of white people trying to mime, charade, anything that we could think of to communicate to these people. And they're getting frustrated, of course, because we don't speak their language, and yet here we are in their country. But so we finally convince him to take the money, and he just kind of throws up his hands and walks away. And we're like, all right, well, let's go see if we can find our hotel. So we've got our packs on us. We're each carrying probably 70 pounds worth of stuff, 50 on our backpacks, maybe or 20 in the front, random assortment of bags. So we're walking down the street, and we're looking for some way to tell where this hotel is, which is silly. I mean, there's no way that we can even compare the symbols. It's just all mumbo jumbo to us. So we walk around for about 30 minutes before we realize that we're in the wrong city. And that's what the guy was trying to do, is give us our money back, because he didn't take us where he needed to take us. So after about an hour or so of trying to figure out how to get to this city, we finally do arrive there. To this tiny little town right next to the beginning of the Yellow River. It's called Dakhajah. And come to find out that later on in the month, we found out that they had just started construction on that town a year before. It's crazy how China does this. They go in with a team of people and they literally build the city from the ground up all at one time. It's not just a section here, a section there. It's like the entire city at one time. So it was just chaos for us. Kind of felt like we were on this eerie movie set of some sort. Very, very strange cultural things for us. For one, the bathroom situation, which is disgusting. It was like squatty potties. We went to this. We went into a bus station bathroom one time, and it's like set up in the shape of an L, and there's like, it's maybe 4 feet off the ground. You climb up steps to get to the top of it, and there's a slit maybe a foot wide going through the L, and then these little walls maybe 3 feet high to separate the rooms, and you just go in there and use the bathroom, and it's like a trough. It was disgusting. I won't even paint a bigger or more disgusting picture for you. You can use your own imagination on that one. But those type of cultural shocks were just, for a second country, we're like, oh my gosh, where are we? We'd walk down the streets and see people sitting outside on benches, and they've got like IVs in their arm, and we'd figure out, oh, that must be the hospital. And then you would walk down the street, maybe a couple of yards away from that, you'd find where they butcher the cows and the sheep, and it's just like on the road. It was just overwhelming, just the differences between their culture and ours. So we were basically thrown into this culture and asked to find out what type of ministry would thrive in that area. I don't think anybody else had ever been there before not even our missionary group, but I don't even think these people had ever seen white people in general before. So we started off just by prayer walking, and I fasted during that month just that God would give us somebody who spoke English, give us anybody. So we started going into the schools, and we were able to connect with some students that spoke English, very, very limited English, and also some English teachers. So that was like a huge deal for us. We're like, yes, we have communication. And it was really cool to see just how we were able to build relationships with them. We went back a few times to talk with some of the kids and just try to explain to them while we were there. We were in an area where there were about 99% Muslim influence. So that was kind of overwhelming, just to know that maybe we weren't making the biggest impact, but we were doing what we could. Really, their whole concept of religion in general was skewed. So we did our best, but our main function there was to pray. And we would prayer walk. We would hike mountains. We would stand on top of the mountains and just pray over the city. Every day we would just take a different road and see where it would lead us. And it was really cool just to be able to probably be the first people to maybe ever pray over that area, like physically be there and pray over it. So aside from all the crazy cultural differences, we had no communication with America and family back home. We were actually without internet for the entire month because it's a closed country. It was really for the protection of our contact. We didn't want the government to figure out who the contact was, so they wouldn't stop us from going there. So we met this group of people like 3 days before we left. And like I said, we were praying that God would just do something, whatever his will was, that he would bring it to this place. And we actually met a group of Chinese Christian missionaries that had moved to this tiny city undercover. They had seen us a few times in the market and decided to pull us aside and in very broken English, asked us what we were doing there. And so we shared, and we were able to meet with them and pray with them about their ministry. And they basically decided to move into this community, become like the local people, and just slowly start to evangelize from the inside. So to even be able to see that, like, just left us on this, this new excitement that, like, for one, that we were able to even make it to this city was totally the Lord's doing. And then to allow us to see like a small piece of fruit of the prayers that we had prayed, it was just amazing. So that was, it was the hardest month I probably had, maybe one of the hardest, in the top 2 hardest months I had on the race. But the Lord just like totally blew our expectations out of the water, totally taught us how to trust in him, really brought us to a new place of intimacy with him. So our third country we went to was South Africa. We landed in Johannesburg and drove like 24 hours to Cape Town and dispersed from Cape Town. So we had teams all over the place. My team actually got a chance to live in a colored community. It's really interesting how South Africa works with their class level. They will openly call themselves, no, I'm black, I'm colored, or I'm white. And those are just like the social classes. It's not, whereas here in America, that would be offensive for somebody to say that about themselves or to somebody else. So we actually got to live in a colored community, and we lived with Ma and Pa, and they have a house that they open up to the kids of the neighborhood, and it's called New Hope Jeremiah Project. And this was one of my favorite months. I felt like, part of my testimony was that I felt like I had to grow up fast, that I had to mature quickly just from circumstances in my life. And this month, God just so redeemed that for me. I just absolutely experienced this new freedom, hanging out with kids all the time. Every day after school, they would come over and we would play games and we would be goofy. They would teach us dances and we would do songs, and it was just so freeing for me to get a chance to be a kid again. We did really ridiculous things. They have something called Friday Night Live that they do once every so many months that we got to be a part of. So my team actually made up a dance, and we rapped. Myself and another team member rapped at this event where there were like 300 people, and it was funny for us to be the white Americans. We're the spectacle, people are like, oh, they're just from America, they're, whatever. So that was just a fun experience for us, getting involved in the community. We really got to know people and actually build friendships. And that was not something I was expecting to go on this mission trip. I knew that we would be going into places and really getting to live among the people, but I didn't expect to actually be able to build friendships. So South Africa will always hold like that special place in my heart. And aside from that, it's just an absolutely beautiful country. Just the mountains and the ocean just meeting in the same place. It was just amazing. And the Lord was really cool to my team. It blessed us with people who wanted to take us out and show us just how beautiful their country was. Mozambique is probably the country where most of my horror stories come from. Mozambique it's on the coast, it's on the east side of Africa and right above South Africa. So on our way there, I'm thinking maybe it's not going to be as different from South Africa since they're so close in proximity. I was so wrong. We stayed in Maputo, which is the capital, just outside there in Machaba. We worked with Beacon of Hope Ministries. This lady is just incredible with what she does. She has a home for boys. She takes in the boys from the community that don't have places to stay, whether or not their families have died or have kicked them out of their home, or she basically takes them in and teaches them, educates them, teaches them trades. However, when we went there, they were actually on summer vacation, so they weren't even at the school. So our job was to prepare this compound for when they came back, which unfortunately for us meant farming, a legitimate farming experience. I always joke around that I learned so many new things and have gained so much experience in different trades. A lot of that comes from Mozambique. So we went in and uprooted corn stalks and sifted through dirt, took rocks out of the ground, build gardens. We go in and plant new corn stalks, beans, I forget what else we did there, or what else we planted. But it was true, like working in the field. We would get up some mornings at 5 o'clock, go work 3 hours before breakfast, come back out afterwards, work in the afternoon, and then work after dinner sometimes just to prepare this place for these boys. It was a very humbling experience. I've never worked so hard with my hands before in my life. I think the hardest part though came from our living situation. We actually had 4 teams that month, and along with our squad leaders plus this woman's family. So there's about 30 people under one roof. We didn't have any AC where we were sleeping. We were sleeping on mats in our sleeping bags under bug nets on concrete floors. And there's no, Africa's hot. I mean, we were there in the middle of summertime. It's probably 110 degrees outside on just any given day, and probably about 90 degrees at night when we fall asleep. So that in itself was miserable. I got African flu. One of my team members ended up being allergic to the continent of Africa. We just experienced some crazy things there. We were out of water for most of the month, which is very disgusting. Put 30 people in one house with one bathroom and no water. Yes, it was not good. So we had to figure out ways to make that work. There were some cool moments though. I do remember one time specifically, we were outside with a big tub and we were just like needing water for various things, for washing dishes, for water to drink. We were pumping our own water versus buying bottled water. And then also for the bathrooms. So we grabbed these tubs and we're taking them outside and trying to fill them up. So the water would start and then it would start to trickle and then there'd be nothing. And we would just lay our hands on the faucet and pray in Jesus' name, flow, water flow, and it would. And actually was able to fill up several buckets of water just by praying over the faucet. And that was just really crazy to be in a place, again, experiencing just absolutely needing God to show up and trusting that He would provide us for basic necessities as water. Another thing that Mozambique did for us, it's the atmosphere in Mozambique, the spiritual atmosphere is very dark. There's lots of witch doctors, lots of witchcraft that goes on. So New Year's Eve, I had gotten the African flu and was with my friend who was allergic to Africa. And we were, everybody else had left. There was this church that some Americans had come in and started in the community, and they went to go spend New Year's with them. So we stayed back and we went to sleep. I woke up at 2 o'clock to my friend just having this crazy attack, like couldn't breathe, just like had grabbed my hand and to wake me up and was like, trying to gesture like I can't breathe. So just started praying. She calmed down enough to tell me like, I don't know what just happened. Something came over me. I couldn't breathe. I felt like something had literally like constricted my my airway. Could not gasp even for one breath. So we went to sleep after that, and I just had this sense. I was like, something is not right in the atmosphere. I feel weird. It feels dark. What's going on? So I'm trying to like calm myself, like just go to sleep, no big deal. Trying to like keep my eyes closed because I don't want to open it and see something. But I do. I open my eyes and I see this gray mass hovering above my bed, and whereas in the past that might have just completely crippled me with fear, was able to wake my friend up and just say pray. And she just knew, like she had that same sense and just started praying in the spirit, and it went away. But we woke up and started talking about it. It started praying over the room and over the house. And as we were quieting down to go back to sleep, heard the beating of a drum in the background. This is like at 3 or 4 in the morning at this point. Heard the beating of the drums in the background, like they were having a seance, like not very far away from the house. Just kind of like bringing in the new year with some type of witchcraft gathering. Not really sure what to call it. So I think for us, that really was an experience that we didn't expect to have, but it turned out to be a big blessing for the lady that we were staying with, because she would normally be the one up in the middle of the night having to fight for her family in prayer. And she had some crazy stories about seeing spirits flying through the sky and just experiencing true just demonic oppression in that area. So for us to be able to come alongside her and fight for her while she had just one of the most peaceful night's sleep that she did was really a cool thing for her and great learning experience for us. Next country we went to was Swaziland. This would have been month 5. We had experienced a team change in the middle of Africa. So we'd had some switching around, and this is the first month that my new team is going to be together by ourselves. We are called Team Sound of Strength. So there are 6 women. And we went and worked at an AIM base. AIM is actually the organization that does the world race, but they had a base in Swaziland that we got to go work with. And they do ministry with kids as well. And they go into care points, which are they're really cool how they're set up. It's basically a point where a go-go, which is a grandmother of the kids in the community, they come together and make food for these kids every single day. And these kids, it'll be most likely the only meal that they'll eat. But they get their food from something like Food for the Hungry or Food for the Kids, and they make these huge pots, and then they serve like 60 kids or so at one care point. So we got a chance to go in and work alongside them. We really, it was kind of more of a month of rest for us because they were going through some leadership transitions, but we get to go just sit at the care point and run around with these kids that were just absolutely the most darling kids you've ever seen. Probably some of the most impoverished areas I've ever seen was in Swaziland. I mean, there's nothing there. Where we were staying, there's no big store for you to go get your food at. There's just miles and miles in any area where there's nothing, just huts. This was like true Africa, what I expected Africa to look like, and kids running around in tattered clothes, or if they're even wearing clothes. So it's also dirty everywhere. And that was like a month where I really experienced what joy looked like, because these kids have absolutely nothing, yet they're smiling all the time, they're laughing, they're so happy. It was just such a cool experience for us to go and see, like, how much do we have? We're sitting in, our nice homes, or I don't know, working a job that actually pays us a decent wage and complaining. Yet here in Swaziland, they have nothing. They don't even have opportunities to work and make money most of the time. So that was such a humbling experience for me. Another thing that Swaziland really did for me was start to shape this dream and vision that I had for my life. I have worked in the medical field for 4 years in my previous job, learned a lot, and have always loved it, and have some degree, I worked in more cosmetic medicine, had always thought that was kind of superficial, but still had like a really deep desire for learning about medicine and knowing that like doctors play such a huge role in preserving life in general. So we had this chance to go travel to a care point that was up the side of a mountain in a really remote area. So we took the trek, went all the way up there, and met with this woman who had a wound on her foot, and apparently had this wound for 3 years at this point. A wound that should have only taken her maybe a month to heal, had actually taken 3 years, and she still hadn't received her healing. So we just got more and more of the story. They just don't have medical clinics. They had one clinic that the AIM base had established, and they had like a medical assistant that worked there. And medical assistant really is kind of one of the bottom in the medical fields, like one of the lowest starting points. So just even basic medical care was just not available to them. So they had done everything that they could for this woman to provide somebody to visit her and clean her wounds, but they just don't know how to do that. They don't know how to take care. They don't know what it means to be clean. Most of these people are living in huts with dirt floors. Their sanitary things, those things just aren't available to them. So I went to meet her, saw just this woman who, she was so sweet and so kind and smiled just the entire time we were there, but she has just completely deteriorated in her function. This wound gets infected over and over and over again. It has deformed her foot. She can't even walk the way that she used to. Just mere 3 years before, was able to walk, has had kids, has had like a life that she's been actively involved in. And all of a sudden, because of lack of medical care, she's not even able to walk on her own, and has completely deteriorated her motor skills. She can't talk very well. She can't communicate. And I just was absolutely broken. We prayed over her, and I've continued to pray over her since I met her. But as I was leaving in the car, I just started crying, and I was like, God, I just don't understand. We come here, we believe, we know that you're capable of healing. We know that you're capable of moving mountains for this woman. But why aren't you doing anything about this? Like, where are you? Why aren't you doing anything? And as I was sitting there just crying and thinking of these things to myself, I just felt like the Lord was saying, I am doing something about it. It's why I've sent you. It's why I've put those passions and desires in your heart. That's why this moves you this way, because this is what I've created you for. And I felt like the Lord just confirming to me, like, this is your calling. This is what I want you to do. So I spent a lot of Swaziland just like mulling over that, thinking about this passion that the Lord had placed in my heart just to help people. Like, it's enough, yes, absolutely, to go in and to help heal the emotional wounds that people go through and to teach them about the Lord, but I really feel a calling to help with the physical needs. And there's just, you would not believe how many places in the world actually lack in that area. So Swaziland was just a really pivotal moment in my life. So we went from 110-ish degrees in Africa to one of the a record-breaking winter in Eastern Europe. We got off the plane immediately into a bus, off the bus into a train, off a train into about 4 feet of snow. And we were coming from Africa, so we're like jeans, t-shirts. We brought like a sweatshirt just in case, it might be cold. I'm wearing my flip-flops into snow, and not just snow. I mean, it's like negative 17 degrees where we're at. Just one of the worst winters that they had ever seen. So we started in Romania. My team was with one other team during this month. There's 2 of us together. We were in Târgu Mureș, and we worked with a pastor, Pastor Jean Borg, and he does gypsy ministry. So he goes into the villages, and it's completely all relational. He goes in, talks to the people, prays for them, does house visits, makes house calls, and just really has a heart for the people. So that's what we did. We walked around. We would walk for 5-6 hours a day in the snow, just going to place. And it was so cool just to build those relationships. Once again, the Lord just showing me that like these are his people, like he cares so much for them. And just being able to go in and love on these people was like all God was really asking. He's just all about love. And that was definitely a month that he showed that to me. We actually had a lot of fun too. I got in this huge snowball fight with a bunch of kids in the Roma villages, and they just absolutely adored our attention, just that we would sit down for 20 minutes with them and have a conversation or throw a few snowballs and run around the area. Like for them, that was like just such a huge deal. And it was so fun to realize that you don't have to go out and spend hundreds of dollars to develop a community, even though that is great. Sometimes all that's necessary is just your presence, to be there and just to love and to hang out with people. So there was one particular family that we visited quite often, and it was this older man who he had some type of lung disease, and you could tell he was very frail. He could hardly function. He didn't ever move out of his bed. So we would go there pretty consistently 2-3 times a week, and we would pray with him and we would sing over him. And even though we couldn't speak their language, we would just love on them, really. And he ended up passing away, I think 3 or 4 days before we left. And for me, this was a new experience that I'd had. I'd never been to a funeral before, never even seen a dead body before. And that's exactly what happened. I walked into his home. They had invited us to the funeral because his family had felt like such a connection and just so touched by us. We actually went to their home, and he had his body just laying in the middle of the floor in the casket. But there's family coming in and out, and really where they were living, there's snow on the ground, but they're kind of like African huts in a sense, but they're padded thicker with mud and sticks to keep the cold out as much as they possibly can. But there's just a body laying in the middle of the floor. And it was such an overwhelming experience, but I don't know, it was just another one of those things that God brought, like a comparison, not in a negative way. I don't mean to say that we do it wrong here in America, but it was totally not at all for show. It was just completely like a family member that these people were mourning over, that they invited us to just even be a part of the service. Was just, it touched me. We got to sing with them and pray with them and just be with these people in a time of deep hurting for them. And God just really moved in the place. And one of my team members grew really close with his wife and got to comfort her, was the one that the wife just like collapsed on her shoulder as she just like stroked her hair as she watched her husband be put into the ground. And it was so intense, but just that even God would give us the opportunity to love on somebody that way just completely blew my mind. Just really taught me what it meant to come alongside people in their hard times and really love on them. And they were some precious people. We went to Serbia next. it was just my team, another month where it was just one team of girls that went. We went to Požarevac, and we worked with a church. And this is really interesting how they place us in certain areas. I mean, they don't have somebody in the office that works this way. Our squad leaders will come together and pray about where they should put each team. So for whatever reason, they put us in this place. And I think that the church that received us thought we were going to be like these experienced missionaries who, I mean, in our minds we were. We're like, we've been around the world, we know what we're doing. But they were expecting like an older group of people to come in and teach them how to evangelize. And that's really what we came on the world race for, is to learn how to evangelize. So we go into this community and work with this church. And we actually started working with this family that goes to this church, and they have 3 kids. It was just a mom and her 3 kids. And they spoke English amazingly well. We were completely caught off guard by that. And really grew a close relationship with them. Well, this woman's son, Lydia was her name, her son Alex has this desire to be a youth pastor in Serbia, in Požarevac. It's just a tiny little town of maybe 100,000 people, and that's including the surrounding areas. So it's pretty small. So he wants to be a youth pastor, but they don't have a seminary where they're from. In Serbia, it's all Orthodox based in their religion. It's Greek Orthodox or the Roman Orthodox church that's come in and taken control. So Alex is telling us his story, what he wants to do with his life, and one thing leads to the next. We were actually able to help him fundraise, put him in a home. One of my teammates, her family actually is letting him stay. He's in America right now. Just the connections that made, like the doors that opened for him within, like, we were there in March. By August, he was enrolled in school, had all his money in, got a plane ticket, had his visa approved, was able to come, and is now a student in America and is going to learn here and go back and be a youth pastor. And it's so cool. The city that they're in, Požarevac, this church has 40-ish people involved in the community. That's it. There are 40 Christians in this city, and that is it. And so we did prayer walks around the city, just like praying that the Lord would move. And it was just so cool to see such a tangible way that we could actually help them win souls for the kingdom. So I was just really blown away by how God pieces just every little detail of your life. He knows it all, he can see it all, and he just, all it really took for us was being willing to go. And this, like, oh, it's just so cool to see how God's going to be moving in Požarevac. After Serbia, we were to be in Europe for 3 months. So Serbia was our second European country. We got to take a vacation of sorts. I say of sorts because we made a decision, for whatever reason, to go to Poland to visit Auschwitz, which really for a vacation probably wasn't the greatest place to choose to go. It was incredibly intense, but we went through Budapest, Hungary, up into Krakow, Poland, where we stayed for a few days, and then went to Auschwitz to see just we went to the museum to see what that was like. And it was absolutely heartbreaking to see. We went through the entire museum, seeing things like all the hair that had been collected from these furnaces that had burned these bodies. I mean, I walked into this one room, and it's, who knows how big it is, but this entire glass pane had been spread from one end to the other, and you just look inside and you're kind of confused at what you're looking at because it just looks like a mess of straw or something, but as you get closer you realize that it's actually hair that they've collected. It's something like a ton of hair or something in this place. It was crazy. I mean, going through each room and just seeing, like, I was just completely overwhelmed at how humans could treat other humans that way. Just the shoes that had been collected, the pictures that you see. We got to walk down through the basement and see the cells that they kept these people in. Just, I can't even put it into words. I just remember walking away from that place being kind of upset, just that society, like humanity, what human beings, like me as an American, this person as a Serbian or I don't know, an African, it didn't matter. Like, we're all still humans. How is it possible that people can even treat each other that way? It just completely rocked my frame of thinking and made me more aware too of just how I treat other people. I mean, not to say that I would ever do something like that, but just to even let those thoughts creep into your mind of like, oh, you're different than me, so whatever it is that makes us different. You don't treat people that way. In God's eyes, we're all the same. So God totally took that time where I was maybe kind of kicking and screaming on my way there, like, really, this is where we're gonna go on vacation, and just totally melted my heart and just gave me a lot of realizations during that time. It was just it was a cool experience to get to go and see. From Auschwitz, we actually went to Ukraine, which was our last European country. So Ukraine was a hard month. I think at that point it had been 8 months that I'd been gone and had just started to think about wanting to go home. I was tired. I'm missing my family. I'm missing America in general. So in a sense, I had kind of gone into Ukraine with an attitude a little bit. I'm over this, I'm done. But we got to work with a ministry that goes in and just holds abandoned babies in a hospital. And there was 2 when we started, just babies that mothers had literally just given birth to at the hospital and dropped out, left there, just completely left their kids. Most of them were just young women who didn't know how to handle a child. I think one of the baby's mothers was maybe 13 years old. It's very young. So we got a chance to go in and just hold these kids for 4 hours a day, and just newborns, weeks old. And it was just precious to see even how much they changed. We were only there for 3.5 weeks to see how they were when we first came, just kind of, entertaining themselves, to being more interactive and just smiling. And they were just absolutely precious. So I feel like even going into that month, realizing, or with this chip on my shoulder kind of I'm done, I've done enough, God, I've done enough for you, than to be pulled back to reality of there's still more people in this world who don't even have that option of going to a home. They're literally homeless at 1 month old. It was just completely humbling. So Ukraine, we actually stayed with a former world racer. He was on the first world race team that ever went out. So that was really cool. We got to hear a lot of crazy stories. And Ukraine was just really unique in itself. I think I'd like to go back there someday. They've got a really cool ministry. It's called International Teams, and they just do a great job at getting involved with, it's a lot of kids ministry in honesty. It's orphanages and kids camps, and we got to see a little bit of all of that while we were there. I think Europe overall was a good experience for me. It is, of course, much more advanced and developed than some of these other third world countries that we've been to, but it's crazy how different the atmosphere is. It's very dark. Everything feels cold. I don't know how to really explain that. It's just, you walk through the streets and it's almost like that hollow, empty feeling of just there's something missing here, and it's absolutely God. They're just are so burnt out on religion. The Orthodox priests have come in and completely taken advantage of the people. They are absolutely the richest people that live in these communities. They live in these huge mansions, and I think people are just really burned by thinking that they have to pay money basically to be a Christian, or it's this list of rules again that you have to follow, and the people are just really turned off towards Christianity in general because that's what they reference it with. All they know is this the structure that they've been raised in. They are kind of turned off to, I think, Americans in general too, particularly Serbia, because of the war that has taken place. I mean, they're still very much like bitter towards America because of that as well. So that made things really difficult, but I think it was just really cool to get a chance to still love people. And that was really what this whole trip has been about, just learning to love people. So for the last leg of the journey, we went to Central America, and we started off in Guatemala, which was a really fun month. It was all girls. We split. So there's, out of 42 people, maybe 10 guys, and then the rest are girls. So they split us up. Guys went to their own ministry, and the girls did ministry in Antigua. Almost all the girls were in Antigua, which is such a fun little city. It's really cute, really touristy area. But we got to work with a guy named Luis, and he owns a nonprofit called Nueva Generaciones, something, basically means new generations. And so my group actually worked at what they call an abuelito home, which is basically a retirement home. I would probably call it a hospice, because really the people who are there are on their way out. It was really overwhelming. The first day that we went there, just to see, I mean, these people are really not mentally there. It was just so sad, because you know that their families aren't visiting them. They're living in this community house. They're all sleeping in one big room. We basically got to go in and just be fun with them. It was just so fun. We would do aerobicas, and they can't get up out of their chairs. So, we're doing like, lift your arms like this, and just like getting them to be able to move around. We did lots of worship with them, and they love that. I mean, we couldn't speak Spanish on the level that obviously they can, but just even singing in English and letting them just listen, and what they may or may not know, they're soaking in the presence of the Lord. It was just really fun. So we did that the whole month, and we actually, one old man in particular, I can't even remember his name, but he used to be a pastor, and he was so funny. He would rarely talk, but he would sing. So we would walk through the retirement home, and he wouldn't really talk, but he would sing. And so he would just be off in his own world, just walking in front of the other patients and just singing. And it was so cute, because he's just this tiny little old man. And so one day we brought in the guitar and sat down with him, and we would do this thing where I would sing a song, and then he would sing a song, and I would sing a song, he would sing a song, and we'd go back and forth, and it would last maybe 2 hours of the day. And we would just draw a small little crowd, and these people would just, they'd clap after every song that we did, and it was so sweet. But I know for him, probably meant the world. I mean, he sings all the time in his community, and I'm sure people are like, oh, be quiet, I'm tired of hearing you. But just that we would even sit down and like give him an opportunity. It was like a little show for him or something. He was just precious. So we got to build relationships with these people in that way. There was actually the first day that we got to the retirement community, they had this dead body in the front of the lobby. And I don't really know why they did this, but they had the body laying out on like a table with a cloth over it, and you could just come and sit and just, mourn over the death. It was just the craziest thing I had probably seen up to that point, as far as, a funeral of sorts, I suppose. But we just got to really develop relationships, and these people, every morning when we come in, oh, we're so excited you're here. We've been waiting for you to come, and thank you so much for spending your days with us. And it was just so sweet. And those people will forever hold a special place in my heart. And I just, most of them, I believe, were Christians or maybe Catholics, but they had a general understanding of who the Lord was. And I don't know. I think it'd be really cool to get a chance to see them again someday. I'm hoping for it. So the second Central American country that we went to was Honduras. And this was interesting because our entire squad, for the first time, was together all in one place. We all lived at Zion's Gate Ministry, and we tented inside and slept on the concrete floor, which was an experience within itself. But we did a whole array of ministry that month. It was really cool being together just with the whole squad. I think a lot of the ministry and the memories I'll take away from that month would just be that our squad together got a chance to worship and minister to each other and really grow friendships and relationships, especially since we were getting ready to leave to come home. So did some really cool street ministry and actually got a chance to go into schools and pretty much give the gospel message and ask for people to, like an altar call really. And that was really neat. We had people raise their hands to receive the Lord in school, in public school. It was just the coolest thing. Our last country that we went to was Panama. And this is probably my favorite country. There are lots of reasons why. It was actually neat for me because I got to be with, it was my team, and then actually every member from the team that I had started the race with. So I actually got to finish the way that I started, which was really cool to me. We did a lot of school ministries. We went into prisons. Actually saw one of the coolest things. We were in a juvenile detention center, ages 17 to 25. Witnessed about 20 boys, like hardcore boys, some that had been in there for murdering people, just violence, gangs, actually stand up and give their lives to the Lord. For me, that was probably the first time in the entire race that I'd seen that type of just the Lord move on hearts that had been that hardened, and actually seen people like, I want to accept the Lord and change. And that was just so cool how God orchestrated that. So Panama was great. It's very beautiful there too. We got to go down to our own little private island and actually went on these boats through the bay and chased a humpback whale. It was a crazy experience, like was coming up out of the water, not even maybe 50 feet from us. So that was such a fun thing to end our trip on. And I don't know, this is just the trip of a lifetime. There's no recreating it in exact, I don't know, the way that it took place, but God was just so faithful. He grew me in so many ways. He stretched me in ways that I could just not even put into words. And I've just come back to America with a different lens on life. Like, yes, America is the promised land. It's amazing to live here, but I don't know. I think that the Lord's given me just a new vision and a new way of looking things since I've been back, and I just feel overwhelmingly blessed that people supported me and gave me money and prayed for me. And I don't know, it's something I will never forget. I don't want to say that this is the best thing that will ever happen in my life, because I'd like to think that this is like the beginning of something even better. And I'm gonna miss it like crazy. I'm gonna miss my new family that I have made over this last year, but I'm so excited for what God has next, and just even be able to share my story with people, I hope will inspire people to want to go and to just be open to the Lord's calling on their life, whatever that may be.
The fullness of your grace is here with me. The richness of your beauty is all I see. The brightness of your glory has arrived. presence, God. I'm completely satisfied. For you, I sing, I dance.